The Great War, World War I, began in the summer of 1914. It was a conflict that many believed would be over by Christmas. However, the war quickly devolved into a bloody stalemate. This was largely due to the advent of new technologies, especially the machine gun. The machine gun made traditional offensive maneuvers incredibly costly. Faced with this deadly new reality, armies on both sides of the Western Front dug in. They constructed elaborate trench systems that stretched for hundreds of miles. These trenches became both a sanctuary and a prison for the millions of soldiers who fought in them. The trenches were more than just holes in the ground. They were complex defensive networks. Trenches had multiple lines, fortified dugouts, and communication trenches. They were designed to protect soldiers from artillery fire and enemy attacks. However, the trenches also created a new kind of warfare, one characterized by stalemate, attrition, and unimaginable horror. This was trench warfare. Life in the trenches was a miserable existence. Soldiers lived in constant fear of enemy attack, artillery bombardment, and disease. The trenches were often waterlogged and muddy, especially during the rainy seasons. This created a breeding ground for rats, lice, and other vermin. Soldiers suffered from trench foot, a painful condition caused by prolonged exposure to damp and unsanitary conditions. Food was scarce and often of poor quality. Soldiers relied on rations that consisted of canned meat, biscuits, and tea. Fresh fruits and vegetables were rare luxuries. Sleep was difficult and often interrupted by enemy shelling or the need to be on watch. The constant noise, the stench of death and decay, and the lack of basic comforts made life in the trenches almost unbearable. Despite the horrors, soldiers found ways to cope. They formed strong bonds of comradeship with the men they fought alongside. They wrote letters home, read books, and played cards to pass the time. Some even kept pets, like dogs or birds, for companionship. These small comforts provided a brief respite from the horrors of war. The physical toll of trench warfare was immense. Millions of soldiers were killed or wounded in the trenches. Machine guns, artillery shells, and poison gas inflicted horrific injuries. Amputations were common, as were severe burns, blindness, and respiratory problems. Medical care was often rudimentary, and many soldiers died from infections or complications that would have been treatable in civilian life. Even those who survived the physical wounds of battle often carried the scars of war for the rest of their lives. Many suffered from chronic pain, disabilities, and respiratory illnesses. The war also had a devastating impact on the mental health of soldiers. The constant stress of combat, the horrors they witnessed, and the loss of comrades took a heavy toll on the minds of soldiers. Many suffered from what was then called shell shock, now known as post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. Symptoms included nightmares, flashbacks, anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. The stigma surrounding mental illness at the time prevented many soldiers from seeking help. Those who did often faced misunderstanding and inadequate treatment. The invisible wounds of war proved to be as debilitating as the physical ones, haunting soldiers long after the guns fell silent. Section 5. Tactics of Trench Warfare, a deadly chess game. Trench warfare was, well, a deadly chess game. Armies on both sides developed new tactics and strategies to try to break the stalemate. One of the most common tactics was the raid. Raids were small-scale attacks designed to inflict casualties, gather intelligence, or disrupt enemy operations. Another tactic was the artillery barrage. Artillery was used extensively in trench warfare to bombard enemy positions, destroy fortifications, and suppress enemy fire. Artillery barrages could last for hours or even days, turning the battlefield into a desolate wasteland. Section 6. Technology of the trenches. New weapons, new horrors. World War I saw the introduction of new and terrifying weapons. The machine gun, already discussed, transformed warfare. Another deadly innovation was poison gas. First used by the Germans in 1915, poison gas was a terrifying weapon. Chlorine gas, mustard gas, and phosgene gas caused severe respiratory problems, blindness, and death. To protect themselves from gas attacks, soldiers were issued gas masks. These masks provided some protection, but they were often ineffective. Gas attacks were particularly terrifying because they were indiscriminate, killing or injuring soldiers and civilians alike. Section 7. Breaking the deadlock, the cost of offensive operations. Despite the stalemate, both sides launched major offensives in an attempt to break the deadlock. These offensives, such as the Battle of the Somme and the Battle of Verdun, resulted in hundreds of thousands of casualties. They gained little ground and achieved few strategic objectives. The human cost of these offensives was staggering. At the Battle of the Somme, for example, the British Army suffered over 400,000 casualties, including over 57,000 on the first day alone. These battles became symbols of the futility and brutality of trench warfare. Section 8. The legacy of the trenches, a generation scarred. The legacy of trench warfare was profound. The war left millions dead and millions more physically and mentally scarred. It shattered the illusion of glory in war and left a generation deeply disillusioned. The trenches also had a lasting impact on military thinking. The horrors of trench warfare led to the development of new doctrines and technologies that emphasized mobility, firepower, and combined arms operations. These innovations would shape the course of future conflicts. Section 9. Conclusion. Remembering the trenches. Trench warfare in World War I was a horrific chapter in human history. It was a conflict characterized by unimaginable brutality, stalemate, and loss. It is essential that we remember the sacrifices of those who fought and died in the trenches. Their stories serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of war. We must strive to learn from the mistakes of the past and work towards a more peaceful future where such horrors are never repeated. The trenches should forever stand as a testament to the folly of war and the enduring resilience of the human spirit.